The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. Want to remind you to nominate the sports volunteer you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nominations at kslsports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules Credit Union. Ben, I was telling you, this is the first year my daughter's going to do organized soccer, not just rec, roll the ball out. Soccer. Yeah. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to put those assistant coaches through the meat grinder. If they want my nomination for Hercules Hero of the Week, well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to set a high standard, buddy.
Go above and beyond.
I mean, you better be nailing it.
Bringing treats.
I
want to see real improvement from every kid. Game 1 to game 6 or however many they play.
I mainly mean just play my daughter.
Exclusively.
Exclusively. As much as she wants. And you could be nominated. No, that's we love Hercules Hero of the Week. They're great. Ben, you think Team USA had the greatest win and the greatest game and the greatest Olympics of the greatest of the great? The greatest.
This is not the greatest performance from any U.S. Olympic team. I think it will always be difficult to outdo the dominance of the 92 team based on the raw scores and the fame of those players compared to the rest of the basketball world. I think as far as individual game moments, this win over France, even more so than the 17-point comeback against Serbia, I will remember, namely because we had a classic moment. We got a classic Steph Curry moment, which I couldn't tell you classic moments from other players in previous Olympics.
Because it's never close.
Because it's never close. Exactly right. It's never close. And you needed Steph to go superhuman, which we usually don't need. We don't usually need to see that from Team USA. Someone doesn't have to take over. They're so good and up by so much that you see a lot more of, the scrubs like Jason Tatum on the roster and Tyrese Halliburton, with all due respect to those NBA All-Stars who could not get on the floor. You don't need Steph to do Steph things, and he had to. And it is still fun that, it's not like Steph's LeBron's age, but he's on the latter half of his career. He's in the twilight. That if this is Steph's last great moment in a game of consequence because they were not willing to trade whatever they had to get Lauri Markkanen, this is not a bad memory for Steph. This is not a bad final great moment for one of the greatest players in basketball history.
Yeah, I mean, they should have benched Dusty LeBron if you want to talk about Jason Tatum should have played.
And LeBron did win MVP, which I don't know what that means. I don't know who else has won MVP of the Olympics before.
I doubt it existed.
But LeBron did win it.
You don't say.
You think Adele called up and said, start this award. Hey, Macron.
LeBron needs this because people are talking too much about Steph Curry and not enough about LeBron. So...
Hello.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. LeBron James, MVP.
So that was fun. It was a fun final chapter. The same way, what it does have in common with the 92 Olympics was it was a chance to see 3 of the greatest to ever play the game who had been not enemies, but certainly, opponents, join forces to compete. And in 92, it was Larry, it was Magic, and it was Michael. And in 24, it was KD, it was Steph, and it was LBJ, it was LeBron. So to get those 3, that's cool. That's the imagery we will see. I like the gray in LeBron's beard. It represents how old he is, and I think it's fitting. But that Steph did it in such a Steph way, which was he made 4 shots that nobody else on the planet can make. and maybe they can make the first one, or maybe they can make the first two. No one's making the third and the fourth, especially his fourth one over Nick Batum, dribbling in and out of traffic, taking a crazy shot, and putting that game to bed was pretty remarkable. And that was fun. But it was not the dominant performance a lot of people think. And I think, though, I owe you a chicken salad sandwich, and we will address that and figure out if we're door dashing them or however you want them delivered. I'd feel a little justified that this was not a cakewalk for Team USA. And I'll be curious what they look like going forward.
They're going to win the next one, too.
They should. They always should. I am curious what the team looks like 4 years from now. It's very difficult to project because it might be some of these kids that are coming into college the next couple of years. But Anthony Edwards will be a face. Tatum will be a face. I would imagine Cody Williams, Utah Jazz forward's older brother, Jalen Williams, will be a face.
And by then, LeBron should be blessedly gone.
Out to pasture.
In theory.
Chet will be on the team.
No, you know what? LeBron will retire for 2 years, and then Adele will call somebody and be like,
you want the MVP back?
Let's get the MVP back for one more go-round. But Adele, he hasn't played in 2 years. We don't care. Because you know what? People aren't talking about LeBron, and they need to be talking about LeBron.
They need to be back on the Bron train.
They need to be back on the Bron train. We're trying to keep Bronny in the league, for crying out loud.
I don't think we'll see KD again. I don't think Steph will play again. In the Olympics, 4 years is just a long way. These guys need as much time off. I mean, Steph could be retired by then.
You can't tell me, though, that Anthony Edwards isn't a better player than LeBron right now.
No, I think LeBron's still better.
Than Anthony Edwards?
Yeah.
You're crazy.
Yeah, still better than Ant.
Dusty old LeBron is not better than Anthony Edwards currently.
Yeah, he is.
He's not better than Jason Tatum currently either. He's not better than most of that team currently.
I certainly trust him more in this type of scenario where he is a much better point guard than those guys.
Notice you didn't say better player, because he's not.
Okay. There are certain spots. I would still take LeBron over Ant. I would listen to Jason Tatum. If I need to win next year, or let's say this year.
How much did LeBron win last year?
Oh, yeah, his team is a joke. His team is a joke.
But see, that now you're falling into the LeBron trap, where nothing is his fault.
Look,
everything is his success.
Fault. He chased Kentavious Caldwell-Pope out of town. He traded. He made bad trades.
I know he did, but that's not my point.
GM LeBron is much worse than GM the player.
But GM LeBron actually saves LeBron the player, because everybody goes, "Oh, his team is so
criticism.
His team is so terrible that nobody criticizes LeBron being terrible. So everybody thinks he's still great because nobody points at the team and goes, well, it's LeBron falling short. Everybody points at the team and goes, well, look at that bag of ward ball players that they just throw out there. Of course they're going to suck.
If we were to get into this argument, which apparently we are, I would take LeBron in place of Anthony Edwards on the Timberwolves as a better roster than with Ant at the moment. And I love Ant.
That's crazy talk.
I love Ant.
That is lunacy.
But LeBron with that roster is better than Ant Edwards on that roster.
Nope.
And I would say the same thing about Jason Tatum.
False. Oh, false. He just won the title.
No, I mean Jason Tatum over Anthony Edwards. I don't know if I would take... I mean, LeBron on the Celtics...
Dusty, no defense,
in place
LeBron.
of Jason Tatum, Celtics still win a title. Absolutely.
False.
They absolutely still win a title.
So false.
I mean, Tatum wasn't even the best player on that team this year.
LeBron's not even the best player on the crappy team we were just talking about.
The Lakers?
Yeah.
You think Anthony Davis is
And
better?
I think he's terrible.
Clearly, they showed that they were both still have a lot left in the tank because Anthony Davis was awesome throughout the Olympics.
Listen.
As was LeBron.
LeBron bothers me for a variety of reasons, but I will not come on the airwaves and say that in his heyday, LeBron wasn't great. But this version of LeBron isn't good.
He's still great.
It stinks. And nobody will talk about it.
It's
because
amazing
they just
how good
blame
he
it on
still
the
is.
team.
He was still...
If he were on the Celtics, he'd be getting barbecued because they'd come up short because he's not good anymore.
Well, they would criticize the players around him. They wouldn't criticize him.
But see, that's the point. That is the point.
But I think if
it's not LeBron losing, it's the cavalcade of morons.
If we're going to...
It's never LeBron losing. They won't even let... You know the stupid graphic they put up after every single game,
Yes.
whether it says win or loss, and
The
then there's a
headline. Yep.
picture from the game?
Yep.
He won't let them put his picture on losses.
Yes, he is not the face of the losing graphic for the Lakers. It's always
Does
somebody else,
that's-
and the wins are him.
Does that sound to you like somebody who is secure that they're still one of the best?
No, it
that
is-
sounds to me like somebody who's trying to cover up the fact that they're 49 years old and not very good anymore.
There is a level of detachment there and protection for LeBron James's greatness, that it's insulated from criticism in a way that is not fair. However, to be fair, he's still awesome and was, in my opinion, the best player on this Olympics team. And when they needed to go late,
Well, he got the MVP.
other than in the gold medal game, which credits Steph, he was the guy. LeBron had been the player they went to, and I would still note that was pretty awesome defensively, including was a huge difference maker in the fourth quarter against Serbia when he was guarding Nikola Jokic for big possessions, and because he is so strong, he was able to stand up Jokic.
Just because Steve Kerr is a coward and doesn't want to pick a fight with Adele, they're forced to play LeBron the whole time.
But LeBron was good.
Because it's not worth the headache of you, like benching Jason Tatum. That's not a headache. You can tell him, hey, wait till the next time or whatever. Benching LeBron and having Adele all over you, pass. That's not worth it, man. Here, take the ball. Draymond Green is still on his team. He has to deal with Adele every single day. Did you see their engagement is back on?
Adele and Clutch?
And Rich Paul.
Oh, good.
Apparently they were rumored to be engaged, and then they weren't for a minute, and now they're engaged again.
Well, that's exciting. I'm happy for them.
Well, yeah, she's the PR face of it all. It's a business decision.
Try to figure out what LeBron shot. Oh, here we go. LeBron James, 14 points, 6.8 rebounds, 8.5 assists. He's 40 years old. It's pretty remarkable how much older he is than everybody else. 66% from the floor. He was awesome shooting. Only 30% from the three-point line. So
Beating
did
up
not
on
shoot
guys
great from
that
three.
can't make the G League. Yeah.
But
Yeah, I'd bet on LeBron, too. I'll probably bet on LeBron at 50. Go
Again,
out there and
this is
beat
a
the Boise Burn or
pretty
whatever it is.
loaded Olympic
Is it?
opponent roster. I mean,
Who guarded
a lot of
LeBron
NBA players.
on Serbia? Again, not just their actual NBA players is not making the argument that you think it is.
I mean, NBA players are the best in the world. There's 450
Yeah, and
of
if
them.
the clinic is your fourth best player or third best player or whatever, and you're the second best team in the tournament, that's not making the point you think it is.
Kelly played less than I expected, but we don't need to get lost on Team Canada's depth chart. You're right. Serbia does not have somebody to guard LeBron. But nobody's ever had anyone to guard LeBron. That's not the argument you think it is. Nobody's ever had somebody to guard LeBron.
I'll tell you,
Still
I'd
to this day.
bet on Jason Tatum to do it a lot better than
He's still never done it.
Pierre Francois.
Yeah, he's still never done it. All due respect to, who was it?
Pierre Francois, by the way, was the most French name I could think of.
Yabusele Gershon, who, this is no inside information at all. I would not rule out a Gershon Yabusele to the Jazz signing in the next little bit as somebody who was drafted by Danny Ainge and is now, looking for a second job and may have some familiarity.
Well, if
there.
his agent was Boris, I mean, he'd be signed
He'd be here yesterday.
today.
He'd be here yesterday. So, you're right. They don't have incredible players suited to defend the best of the best in the world.
You could have just ended it after incredible players.
But they have good players. France is still good. To the point where they did bench Rudy Gobert, though he was good in the second half. He came in and the French coach turned to him. And you saw it. Jordan Clarkson tweeted it out. I think he was exactly right. The amount of space Rudy still creates for offensive players is crazy with his screens. Just every time France needed to get an open shot, they ran a pick and roll with Rudy, and the shooter got a good look. They just didn't make shots.
So let me get this straight. Team France has some NBA players.
Mm-hmm.
What, like 4 or 5?
Yeah, probably that.
They actually have one who's going to be in the Hall of Fame. And the genius coach said, we're not going to play that one.
Well, there's some questions about that coach. Remember, they were 0-4 in exhibition games. They were really bad. A lot of people wanted him fired. So,
Second coming of Phil Jackson here. I got a Hall of Famer. And you know what? I think he's the problem. I think you're the problem. And don't give me this spacing garbage. You've got 3 good players, and you're telling me you're just not going to use one of them?
He did not figure out ever how to get Wemby and Gobert on the floor at the same time.
I'll
And
figure
maybe
it
it's
out.
not possible. Maybe it's not
It
possible.
is possible.
They got to the gold medal game and played better after he benched Rudy.
It'd be
Not
like
Rudy's fault.
if we here at KSLSports.com and KSL Sports Zone and KSL Channel 5 had formed a skateboarding team, and we said, you know what, Ben, why don't you sit this one out?
You're the only one with any experience, but you're toast.
You're one of the best defensive players on the planet, but we don't think we can use you. Wait, Coach, you can't use me? Rudolph G. Gobert? I'm making $60 million a year to play this game. And Pierre Francois is getting my minutes?
I'll be curious how Rudy bounces
They should
back.
fire that coach today. Imagine Nate calling you and be like, hey, Ben, we don't need you on the skateboarding team.
It's not your.
We don't think you create enough space.
It's another area of
everybody
expertise.
else.
We like the upside elsewhere. I'll be curious how Rudy bounces back. Not that, again, it's not like he
You should
played
defect.
poorly. And I don't know if he's still on the Olympic team 4 years from now. You know, he's 31, 32.
Going to be playing for Team USA if he's smart.
He's gonna do the Joel Embiid thing. Denounce
No,
his
he should.
citizenship
Yes, exactly.
and come play for the U.S.
Hard pass.
I'll be curious what Rudy has to offer this year in Minnesota. I think talks about his decline after how poorly he played his first year in Minnesota. Bounced back, won Defensive Player of the Year last year, but then again had some difficult moments, obviously, in the playoffs. Luka Doncic hitting that 3 over him in a huge moment. Felt like he ended that chapter very poorly and then had a rough summer with France. I'll be curious what he does next year. Curious about Minnesota's upside.
I think they're going to be really good again. Why
No,
wouldn't they?
they should still be good. They should still be good. I don't know if they're any less flawed today than they were before, and that's the problem.
But they've got a better player than LeBron on their team. And I'm not even talking about Rudy.
Cat,
Certainly not Cat.
Jaden McDaniels.
I like him, but no. Anthony Edwards, who you love. I can't believe you're buying the propaganda, Ben. So frustrated.
Joe Ingles.
Did you see who was it? Somebody on a podcast was making fun of Paul George because his biggest rival at one point was Joe Ingles. Oh, man, I have to go look that up. I shouldn't bring that up without knowing. All right, stay tuned. We're going to talk to Cole Bagley coming up next. We're going to talk a little Utah Hockey Club. He's been busy at work at KSLSports.com. And we had a groundbreaking today.
An unveiling today out at the is it Southtown?
Yeah. Did Shovel hit the dirt?
The shops at Southtown. I hope they brought they should put Ryan Smith in a big backhoe. I'd let him just start digging in there. No more the hard hat and the shovel or the scissors and the big ribbon. Get me in. Get Ryan Smith on a crane with a big wrecking ball.
Oh, screw that. I'd want to do the dynamite.
Just right. Have the plunger.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And blow up the building.
Macy's.
Yeah. Now we're talking.
Ryan, if you want to do things big,
do it big.
ditch the shovel, brother.
And don't do that wimpy.
Get some dynamite.
Don't do that wimpy like implosion thing they do with
No,
buildings either.
I want
like
debris on I-15.
right all over, everywhere. Like that city that blew up the whale. Have you heard that?
Absolutely.
That is easily one of my favorite bits of audio.
There was
It
a
had to be
beached whale, and
in
they
like
thought
the 70s
they
or
couldn't
something.
move it, and they
or
thought the
80s.
best way to do it is with dynamite, and they didn't realize that they were going to
They
blow up a rotting carcass.
pack it full of dynamite, and all that dynamite would just incinerate the whale.
Kind of.
And they blew whale parts all over their town.
Is it Cleveland and did it with balloons, right? They were unveiling this big thing, and they unleashed 1 million balloons at one time to set a world record, and the balloons, of course, just wreaked havoc on the city. Well done, everybody.
Do you fire the city manager or whatever whose idea was the dynamite? God, Larry, that didn't work at all.
There was one guy who said, "This is a lot of dynamite."
Way to screw that one up, Bob. God, why did we ever listen to you?
This guy was making the sale for all this dynamite in a town that has never bought dynamite before. And he was thinking,
Oh, it's like the Music Man.
it's like, this is a lot. You sure you want this much? And they were like, yeah. He's like, all right, box it up.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like some traveling dynamite salesman was like,
I can fix your problem.
you got trouble. right here in Portland City or whatever it is. Big whale, huh?
You guys need some dynamite.
I'll tell you what, this dynamite will just do a dynamite job. Stay tuned. Cole Bagley's next. 97.5 DKSL Sports Zone.
Who's got it better than us? Your home for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. We might be talking to Cole Bagley this segment, but he's big timing us for somebody important.
Andre Tirigny. Tirigny? The coach.
Yeah.
For the Utah Hockey Club. Bear.
Yeah, I'd interview the Bear first, too.
Big basketball news locally. Yesterday, Utah women's basketball lands Liana Sneed out of Texas, a 5-star recruit. It's got to be the first 5-star recruit ever in the history of the school. When you mix in Yegor Demine, Cannon Catchings, and I've also heard people say Canaan, got the most incoming high school basketball talent over the next couple of years that we've ever had. Sneed coming to Utah is a class of 2025, so she won't be in here until next year. But Catching's a borderline 5-star kid. Demine a 5-star kid. Sneed now a 5-star woman coming to the Utes. It's pretty cool. I'm excited to have some real live talent here. Not that there haven't been good players coming through, but top-tier talent coming through our schools locally.
You think Utah is outbidding other schools for this person?
So I was curious about this because unlike men's basketball, where the Big 12 is basically a step up from any other conference unless you're in the ACC, the Big 12, with all due respect, is a step down for Utah women. And Pac-12 is the conference. You know, you have Stanford, you have Oregon, you have a history of really good schools that compete. USC has been getting the top recruit in women's basketball several years in a row. UCLA historically has some talent. So for the women to go from the Pac-12 to the Big 12 and continue to land recruits is huge. And I'm curious about that. It must be a financial commitment. And maybe they're not putting that money into the men's basketball team, and they're relocating it to a place where they have a coach who is winning them games. And congratulations to Coach Lynn Roberts. One of my big questions, and you've got to win still, but was what do they do once Alyssa Peely's gone? Because she wasn't an accident. She was a big recruit, also at USC, right? Recruited out of Alaska.
Right.
But no one knew she was going to become a first-round WNBA draft pick. She's a little bit like Jakob Poeltl, a little bit like DeLon Wright. Maybe DeLon's a better comp because they were a transfer. But you just didn't realize, you were getting a high-level player stepping into your program that ended up being the best player on your team. Poeltl did that. DeLon Wright was that for a year. Alyssa Peely did it for 2 years with the women. I was curious, when you get a little bit of luck like that, how do you follow that up? Do you just completely become irrelevant again, or do you maintain that level of success? Following Alyssa Peely, we'll see what they do this year, but by adding a 5-star player next year is a really good sign.
Well, I asked the question, just I wonder how NIL stuff is being distributed, because in this terrible, and I mean like in so many ways, system that we have created, there's no accountability for how much money is pumping through the collective or whatever, which is supposed to be against the rules in the first place, which is hilarious. But there's no, who's making the decision on where the NIL money is going? Like you mentioned that maybe it's not going to basketball. Who's making that decision?
Yeah, I think that's interesting.
Like at BYU, for example, it seems to me that they're pouring a ton of money into basketball. And maybe they are football, but we're not seeing it as publicly. We know how much Kevin Young is making, which I can't tell you how shocking that is. Because that's never happened at BYU ever. Like I joked with Mitch Harper about it at the time. That's the white whale. Everybody has been chasing the story of how much BYU's coaches are making forever, and they're just flexing it. So who's making that decision? Is it the donors who say, I only want my money to go here? Is it the collective, who's running these collectives?
Right. Yes. And with BYU specifically, it feels like a reallocation of money. And now we're so early on this NIL process, but it feels like there's been a reallocation of Keaton Slovis money to Yegor Demeen money, right? Like that you're investing in Cannon Catchings. You're investing in some of these players to come and land at BYU on the basketball side of things. And that investment may not be there as strong on the football side. And I'm curious if that's what's happening at Utah. We know what's happening on the football field. We've seen it. You see the sponsors. You see the trucks. You hear about the Utah Collective a lot. But where is it going with the basketball program? Is it trending towards the women? And you know what? You probably get a lot better bang for your buck.
Because I bet there's a lot of sexism in the NIL world. And I point this out. I'm not trying to be controversial, and I think you'll get my point. But the nice part about how it used to be done is everything had to be equal.
Title IX.
Hard and fast. Everything had to be dollar for dollar. That's how it worked. It provided a lot of benefits to a lot of people for a long time. But now, apparently that great law doesn't apply to NIL for some reason that I still haven't really totally been explained, at least to my satisfaction. But now collectives, how many collectives are investing in women's sports? I bet you the ratio sucks.
Oh, yeah. It's probably 20-1 men to women, right? At least?
Dollars spent? I would say.
It's probably 50-1.
Yeah, I was going to say you're probably a little low.
I was talking just schools in general. Yes, UConn, right. Tennessee, Rutgers, Notre Dame. There are some places where I bet you women are making okay money.
And in a public university system, in my opinion, that's wrong. Now, if you're a private schools have a little bit different, but private schools still take Title IX money. You're talking accountability to everyone. So you can just build these war chests and pay whoever you want with no transparency or accountability? I'd be curious to somebody, not like a Ryan Smith-like donor, but somebody that supports the collective or whatever at any of these universities. I'd be curious how much accountability you actually get.
Yeah. Or input.
If you're Ryan Smith, you can say this is going to the basketball program, and you guys go pound sand.
And by the way, build me some seats.
Your average collective donor, at least I'm guessing, doesn't get any sort of sway with where their money goes.
No, at all.
So the American taxpayer used to get equal for women and men. There was accountability for it. There's a law about it. Yeah. It's very prosecutable. And now we just don't care about that anymore? Well, or that wasn't a good thing?
It's private money. It's not public money anymore. So it's private money, and I guess you can do whatever you want with it. But
that makes it right.
Of how to allocate money, Davon Smith leaves Utah last year, the point guard who comes in and was like outwardly campaigning for $750,000 a year. Ends up at St. John's. Am I right about that? Probably got $500,000. Maybe he got less than that, but do you think the Utah women's basketball roster is going to make $250,000 next year?
No.
Not even close, right? Like you led this woman who is committed to Utah, and she's a young person still, not a child, but a teenager still. Liana Sneed, the 5-star recruit out of San Antonio, she's the 26th ranked recruit in the country in women's basketball, meaning you probably didn't have to pay 6 figures to get her, I would imagine. So when we're talking about bang for your buck, if you want just wins, not back end, you make the NCAA tournament, you get X amount of money and the men's tournament pays out so heavily, or you go to the college football playoff and it pays off so heavily. But as far as just talent and talent getting wins for your program, investing in women's sports is probably pretty smart.
It's not. That doesn't mean that I don't like it, but it's not.
You don't think so?
No, if Utah is investing in their women's program over their men's, they're dumb. You just mentioned the NCAA tournament. Do you know what a game win share?
Right,
Compared? It's exponentially different.
In fact, they're only now starting to disperse these things for women's basketball differently than they have for the men.
So if you are, this is why it's wrong. If you are investing in women's sports to take away from your men's sports, you are doing yourself a disservice.
A financial disservice.
No, I mean as an overall program health disservice.
Why?
Men's basketball is way more important than women's basketball.
Because it pays more to your school.
To your school.
So, yes.
And it garners more attention. It's all the things. You should be, if you are a smart athletic department investing your NIL money, it would be 70% for football and 29.5% for men's basketball.
Yes, if you're looking purely from a financial standpoint, yes.
Which is the system we've created, Ben.
Correct.
So there's no incentive to invest in women's sports anymore in this way. That's why I was curious if you thought that this was an NIL decision. I'd say that's a very altruistic move for Utah if it is. And if it's true that they're taking away resources from their basketball team and giving it to their women's basketball team, they're dumb. That's dumb.
I support it.
I didn't say I didn't.
Sure, but what you're saying is the back end gain is not worth it. What I would argue is, let's just throw out a hypothetical number.
You value changing people's lives and fairness and all these things that used to matter. It doesn't matter anymore.
Hypothetical, $50,000, the hypothetical number, I have no idea. $50,000 gets you a 5-star recruit in women's basketball. What does $50,000 get you in men's basketball? The worst player in your state?
Okay.
So the worst player in your state doesn't give you a single win. If Snead comes in and helps you win 20 games for the next 4 years because they don't jump to the NBA after 1 year, it's a hell of an investment if you're purely looking for wins. If you care about wins and not the financial windfall that comes from getting units out of the Pac-12 tournament, if I'm an investor and I just want my team to win the NCAA tournament, if I just want my team to have W's and me to have something to cheer for, this investment in women's basketball, I think, is a smart one. If you're just looking for unit displacement or disbursement after wins,
the overall health of
bad.
The overall health of the athletic program. It's dumb to spend on women's sports.
But $50,000 doesn't get you anything in men's basketball. It just doesn't. There's no
but
way.
the payback from men's basketball is 10 times what it is from women. So for your argument, you'd have to inflate that number. Does that make any sense? Like, yeah, you're not getting anything for $50K, but the return on your investment sucks. Maybe if you spent $150K, you would get those units that would be worth way more.
We've got some Utah news, Utah football news. Do you want to take a break and come back and I can do a victory lap, or do you want to break it before? Should we take a break and come back?
You're taking a victory lap?
I'm going to do a victory lap when we come back.
All right.
Should we do that? Is that all right?
That's a good tease.
Okay, I'm going to do a victory lap when we come back.
Stay tuned. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
1, 2, 3, move it.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Two amigos on the airways, talking sports. They got him Matrix and also loves his tie-dye. Ben's got style with his scarf. Oh my.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake, Scott, Ben Anderson. Want to remind you about Peach Doors and Windows. Amazing home transformations begin with Peach Doors and Windows, where 5-star reviews are the norm. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255. Peach Doors and Windows.
If there's one thing I've learned in 11 years of doing this job, covering not just the Utah Jazz, but BYU football and also Utah football, so I've got a decent feel, I think, for head coach Kyle Whittingham. And, buddy, last week when I said Whit cannot wait to name Isaac Wilson as the lead backup for the University of Utah, it came true today. Our own Utah football insider, Steve Bartle, on Twitter, Bartle KSL Sports. Cam Rising's number 1. Isaac Wilson is number 2. According to Kyle Whittingham, they went with the true freshman over Brandon Rose, who's been in the program for a while, and Heward, who's transferring in as the former 5-star recruit. What's going with the kid?
Well, if push ever came to shove, I'd be curious to see what he did. But
we were talking about the politicking. How do you finesse this?
But I think it says everything you need to know about Brandon Rose.
Says
But maybe, him not playing in the bowl game honestly told you everything you needed to know.
It was weird. The Brandon Rose stuff was always weird. And he got hurt last year and it was fluky, right? He stepped on a football or something and slipped and hurt his shoulder and whatever happened there. But that it wasn't obvious that Brandon Rose was the guy going into this year as the number 2. And that Isaac Wilson was even being talked about, I think was a strong indicator of where he was in this race all along, whether he was playing well or not. This is a Utah family. Whiffing on Zach Wilson is one of the great black eyes in recent Utah football history. And having his younger brother now in the program with some upside. I don't want to say similar upside. I'm not going to put number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft on Isaac Wilson's shoulders. You just knew there was going to be room carved out for Isaac Wilson to have as much time as he needed to become the guy. And you put him in a spot like this, number 2 overall, leading into camp or leading into opening week a couple of weeks from now, to give him that confidence that he's the guy going forward.
So you're saying that they did this to placate Lisa?
I'm saying they're trying to right past wrongs.
So they're skipping him in line because of Lisa?
It's not an Adele situation.
Past wrongs? What past wrongs? Isaac and Zach
They whiffed on Zach.
are 2 different people. What does that have to do with Isaac?
It has everything to do with Isaac. It does absolutely.
It has nothing to do with Isaac.
It 100% is righting a wrong that they messed up.
If they're making that decision for that reason, then that's foolish.
Utah has a history. And look, I'm not criticizing Kyle Whittingham. He's done one thing since he's been at the University of Utah: win. That dude wins football games. He is one of the 5 best coaches in the country. I very firmly believe that. But he tries to right the wrongs of his teams in ways that are, I almost want to say, a little bit too on the nose. They're unique, right? What happens when Utah can't stop the run, especially dual threat quarterbacks? What does Utah do? They turn their quarterback into a dual threat quarterback. When they can't stop it defensively, they say, well, let's make our guy that guy. It's like a weird way to fix a problem that I'm not sure actually makes sense, though it has resulted in wins. Instead of just improving your ability to stop dual threat quarterbacks, Utah changes their offense to better suit dual threat quarterbacks. When you lose Zach Wilson, instead of just saying, hey, we're not going to make that mistake with local quarterbacks, which is one Utah's made a lot, they recruit his younger brother and push him up the depth chart really quickly. It's not 1 + 1 = 2 always with how Utah operates.
I'm aware of how nepotism works, Ben. Thank you for that accurate illustration. I'm just telling you, you're doing Isaac Wilson a disservice by saying that he didn't earn his spot, that he's getting it because Lisa somehow is pulling the lever for him, and I'm not going to do that.
Hello.
There's no point in bringing up that they missed on his brother when talking about Isaac getting this spot. Did he get it because they feel bad that they wronged Lisa, or did he get it because he's the second best quarterback on the roster? Now, for Utah's sake, I would hope it's the latter. But if it's the former, well, I think you're doing your football team a disservice and you're doing Isaac a disservice.
I think this is a long-term move for the University of Utah with the highest upside because Heward's not going to be here long-term. If Brandon Rose was ready to take over, he would have taken over already, and he hasn't. So I'm not
that has nothing to do with Zach.
Taking away from Isaac Wilson's merit at all.
Sounds like it.
Traditionally, if there was a different historical precedent with A, Utah, and B, the last name on Isaac Wilson's jersey, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a different outcome.
What if KSL canned you, felt bad about it, so they hired your brother? It wouldn't make any sense.
I'm not. Oh, you're using logic now.
You're
using law. You're trying to apply logic to a place where, as I laid out earlier, not all of Utah's football decisions have been logical. The way they have righted wrongs historically has not always been logic-based, in my opinion.
No, I think if Isaac's number 2 on the depth chart, he earned it. I'm not. Or at least that's how it should be.
That is how it should be. I 100% agree with you. This should be merit-based. And I'm not saying Isaac Wilson doesn't have the highest upside here. Do I think he's the most ready to play day one?
I'm sorry.
I doubt he is.
I'm sorry, Lisa. We're so sorry that we didn't recruit your other son. And we're going to put him your younger one, number 2 on the depth chart. You're Bronny James in that guy. Oh,
really? That happens in college sports? My goodness.
But you're saying like Bronny James doesn't belong.
You're telling me politics play a role in this?
Does it play a role on this one?
Huh?
Does it? On this? Then this? Okay, I know it does with Bronny James.
1,000% yes. 1,000% yes.
That is a mistake. And I'm sorry that you don't think Isaac Wilson is very good.
I didn't say that at all. There's a reason
That's
I picked
exactly
him to be
what you
number
said.
2. No, I'm just saying there's also a thumb on the scale.
You picked him to be number 2 because you knew Lisa would have that thumb on the scale.
I know how Whit operates, and I've watched him for a
'Cause he's
long
not
time.
really
and I predicted this a week and a half ago, and I was exactly right.
He's not necessarily a political actor.
And
That's not how
talking
he's been.
to people I've talked to, Isaac Wilson had not been the best quarterback at Utah as the number 2, but sounds like he made a late push.
Stay tuned. Hanson, Scotty G, your code
Thanks,
up next.
Christian.
We'll talk to you tomorrow. 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.